everyone.
I'm back, baby.
It's Jake Ciely.
I'm great. Everybody else sucks.
Oh,
no. It's every nightmare I've ever had.
Excuse me?
It's time to check the link.
Pretty crazy, huh? But it doesn't matter because none of this has anything to do with the show.
You know what? You just made the list.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time. Really? No.
What's up, you dogs? Another week of madness right before we come on our Wednesday show. Jeff Ratcliffe and Jake Ciely on All in Football seem to be breaking news every single week, it seems, at this point. Make sure you're following Jeff at Jeff Ratcliffe, and make sure, hey, you could even listen to some of his insight already on SiriusXM, his award-winning SiriusXM show, so make sure you're checking that out. And over at FTN, code ALLIN, 20% off, and theathletic.com/BetsTV. All capitals. That's first free month if you want to read your favorite beat reporter or just yell at me in the comments, Jeff, about the fact that I rated my top 10 HBO and Showtime shows because somebody asked. I have never watched The Sopranos. I've never watched The Wire, so people lost their minds because I've never watched those shows. And how do you do like I haven't eaten every food in existence. I haven't seen every movie in existence. So people lost their damn minds. Do you have a favorite HBO show of all time for you?
If Game of Thrones would have ended better, that probably would have been it. But the last season...
It was third for me because of that.
Yeah, it went off the rails. I honestly don't think The Wire holds up as well as people give it credit for. No, I'm not saying
you're
it's
about to get hated
terrible.
on.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead, bring it. Sopranos is probably it. There's some others that have been good over the years, but you know, it's tough to put together an entire series that just holds up. And I felt like there are points in The Wire. Wire also has some really questionable representation if you look at it from a socio-cultural standpoint. And I know that's not the take that people want to hear, but remember, I have a PhD in anthropology, and that was a critique that was thrown out there about it. But regardless, Jake, you should get The Sopranos on your list, but don't watch the movie follow-up prequel thing.
Was it that bad?
It was terrible.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Curb was number one. I put the Harley Quinn series number two. I don't care that it's an animated series. It's hilarious. The Bane voice actor is the best thing in the history forever on that show. But yeah, Game of Thrones was number three because of that. And then I gave True Detective only season one, like stuff like that. But anyway, as a sidebar, yes, Jeff Ratcliffe, PhD. Also, I don't know who James is talking about. It says his favorite and most accurate fantasy analyst. I'm assuming it's you, Jeff, because you're 2 and I'm 3.
I think he missed the W in 2.
I see that as well. I'm wondering, can you just rank quarterbacks for me? Can you I'll continue to do great at running back, wide receiver, and tight end, but can you just take care of quarterbacks for me? Because I can't even finish inside the top 50 any week with quarterbacks. And there's only like 26 to crank.
I think quarterbacks are now getting the problem that we ran into before we shifted over to half-point PPR. Because remember, it was like, hey, if you scored touchdowns, you got all the guys high who have scored touchdowns in a given week in standard or now we call non-PPR rankings, then you were great. And if you didn't, you sucked. And now it seems the way that it's going with quarterback, unfortunately, this year. I'm a little better, but I've had a couple weeks where I've been outside the top 100, which is like – that never happens, but this year it seems to be the commonplace at quarterback.
And the funny thing is as you said it, so it does it by scoring, as you mentioned. So if you rank somebody 10, they finish 20th, what was the points he would have scored at 10 instead of at 20? All that being said, there's like a 20 point gap from like 20th down to 120th because that's how narrow you're talking about. You score one touchdown out the window. But, you know, who's got to be scoring touchdowns this week? You like that transition? Aaron Rodgers, COVID. He is officially out this week, which means if he's already officially out as of today, I'm sure people have seen the news. It means he's not vaccinated because otherwise he still would have had time, just like Saquon Barkley, to potentially test twice negative and still play. So he's out. He's also out for at least 10 days, which puts next week into question. But that's not what we're talking about because we're talking week 9. Devontae Adams has been around wide receiver 10 to 14 without Rodgers in the past, but this is Jordan Love. And this is Jordan Love that we have a very small sample of, and most of our sample comes from preseason football. What are you doing with Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones? Because I'm assuming for you, Jeff, even if Valdez-Scantling plays, A.J. Dillon, I'm assuming those are the only two that are playable for you this week, correct?
I think A.J. Dillon could be playable just because people are absolutely devastated at running back, and if the hit list just continues. So I think he's flexible. He ran really well. I said this on the SiriusXM show today. I love Aaron Jones in a Packers uniform, and I'm not upset that he's still in a Packers uniform, but part of me does wish we got a full season, like a 300 carry season of A.J. Dillon, because he runs so hard. He's so angry. And he's a big dude, as we both know, because we saw him at the Combine last year. But, Aaron Jones, I really didn't move him in rankings. And I did adjust on the fly live on air today. I had Davante Adams initially at 2. I did move him down to 10, which is where you just mentioned, right around the area where he's floating.
I was going to say that. I think that's where I have him. I'm going to go check.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Continue.
No, I moved him down to 10. I'm going to use him. Obviously, we lost Robert Tonyan. They didn't trade for Evan Ingram. I wish that trade would have happened. That's all you can use here. The good news, though, unlike somebody like Justin Fields, who Allen Robinson came out a couple weeks ago and said, hey, Justin Fields didn't get first-team reps until he took over as the starter, basically. Jordan Love did get first-team reps. He got a lot of them. So at least there's that, and he does have the chemistry, and the matchup is pretty good. So I don't think we're completely pushing the panic button with Davante Adams.
No, for Alex in there saying Blake Bortles he was signed, but he hasn't been on this team since the preseason. He's familiar with the team from the preseason, but all reports are that Jordan Love is starting. And honestly, between Love and Bortles, look at Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco didn't even get to start for the Jets, and a lot of people assumed that was going to happen. So I'm saying between Bortles and Love, I wouldn't really move anybody anyway. I'd kind of put him in the same conversation. I think there's more upside with Love at this point, and that's why they kept him and let Blake Bortles walk. Well, also the draft capital spent on it. I actually didn't. You know what? I updated my projections. He didn't fall as far as I would have thought from initial gut reaction. Like when you said 10, I'm like, I wonder if that's where I have him at 10. Mine actually checked out at 6, still barely in front of Chase because he's playing the Browns, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and Deontay Johnson. If you want to start any of those over Adams, but the point is, don't go benching Adams. Like, don't. I will say, somebody said, Joe in there, Adams is off my DFS lineups. I would say that's actually, you know what? If you're in a giant tournament, I might keep Adams in there. A big one, because everybody is going to be off Adams, and Adams is still Adams. If you can ever get Adams at 2% rostership, it's worth it in a tournament.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the comment in here that Blake Bortles is based on Adam Schefter's tweet. All right, I really need to keep driving this point home.
Wait, time out. Is this like the 6th or 7th time you've referenced Schefter? Like, it's just because we've said it like how many weeks in a row?
Adam Schefter is not a fantasy analyst. He's putting out NFL information. It does not say Blake Bortles is going to be the starter. I'm reading it right now. It says he's going to sign to the expectation signed to the practice squad, could be elevated to the 53-man roster. That doesn't mean the pick 6 king is going to be, and by the way, Robbie Blake Bortles, first name really Robbie, is going to be the starter. So let's just, Schefter tweets something cool that should not be moving our needle as much as it often moves our needle. So it's Jordan Love. And plus, odds on favorite to be traded next year, Aaron Rodgers, or to not be on the team in one way, shape, or form. You at least now get a look at Jordan Love, who I don't know if he's the future, and I don't think anybody knows if he's the future of this team.
No, not at all. So yes, similar to another fun guy that used to be for Jacksonville is Gardner Minshew. That he's not even the second because his dad is not Gardner. Another one of those. Why is every quarterback that comes out of Jacksonville like a weird name? Did you know that? Did you know Gardner Minshew that his dad's not named Gardner? He just likes the second. He likes Gardner Minshew the second. You didn't know this?
No, that's good.
Here's the capper. And I actually got fired from the Fantasy Footballers DFS show for chanting his name too much that year. This was now 2 or 3 years ago. Is the fact that his grandfather wanted to name him Beowulf. From the books. I chanted Beowulf the one week and people got angry, and it was apparently too outside the realm of fun for the Footballers DFS show. Let's talk Titans DFS. Titans running backs. Derrick Henry. And again, I tweeted this earlier today, Jeff. You and I have had this conversation ad nauseum, maybe every single week. And because I saw a lot of trade questions in the rankings column again, a lot of people are right. I want to trade Nick Chubb. And then the next running back up is A.J. Dillon. And so I tweeted, I said, stop being so willing to give up a top 15 running back. Now, that being said, Nick Chubb's your 3rd running back, and then your 4th running back is like a Damian Harris, and you go get Cooper Kupp Okay, thumbs up. Cool. I understand that. But you can't put a timeshare backup into a starting position, even if the value in a vacuum looks right. And here's the perfect example why. We just lost Derrick Henry. You said it. People might need to start A.J. Dillon because of what's going on. Adrian Peterson signed. Every report is the offense isn't going to change much. He's stepping into the Derrick Henry role, but he's coming off the street. Jerry McNichols has been there, has barely ever carried the ball. One time, double-digit carries, but this matchup would point to the passing game. I say this, Jeff, and I'm curious if you're great. I was on Pat's show. I said, long-term, Adrian Peterson. This week, Jeremy McNichols.
Yeah, but ideally, neither. I guess
ideally.
The real answer here. Yeah, they're both flex options this week. Adrian Peterson could carry the ball 10 to 15 times at 3.3 yards per carry. Do the math. He needs a touchdown to be fantasy relevant. Jeremy McNichols will catch the ball out of the backfield, and this signing was a 100% indicator that yes, he's going to slide in. Peterson's going to slide into Henry's role, and McNichols' role does not change. So you could have been in a position, though. You could have been in a position where you absolutely needed a running back. All right, I get it. Pick up Peterson. Hopefully you don't have to start him this week. But, if it comes down to the two of them, yeah, I do have McNichols as a front-end RB3. I have Peterson as a back-end RB3 this week.
All right, that's certainly. Oh, do you expect? Well, let me change the question. Do you believe the Titans when they say the game plan is not going to change at all, or do you think they could honestly say, let's look at the talent, and if Julio Jones is playing, maybe we pass a little bit more? Mostly for this reason, Jeff, stock up for Ryan Tannehill, or is the loss of Derrick Henry similar to the beginning of the season when they decided not to run play action? You saw how bad somebody not like Derrick Henry. I mean, look at what's going on with Sam Darnold since he lost Christian McCaffrey. Do you think Ryan Tannehill is moving up or down with this move?
I think he stays the same.
Okay. So it offsets?
He's trending up in terms of the connection with A.J. Brown, which is helpful. But, yeah, losing Henry hurts. Maybe you have a couple more passing attempts. Maybe he runs a couple more times here and there. He's a good running quarterback as well. He's very mobile. But I don't think it changes. I think he's just a QB2 and, front-end QB2. And that's really probably what we should have viewed him as all along.
Certainly understandable. The question, Alex popped this in here, and I've said this live, like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation, Jeff. People keep asking about it, and first of all, we have zero clarity on what's going on with him. Like, there's indeterminate timelines. Like there's some like the IR could come back after he's off the IR. There's some like it could be a 6-week injury. Seems to be all over the map with him. The biggest question is kind of what Alex is talking about here, and what I've been saying is I'm fine holding Darrell Williams unless I have a clear need and a clear glut at running back, and I can get low end, but low. I want an RB2 return value, not an RB2 back necessarily, but because I don't know that it's not a timeshare when Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back, because Clyde Edwards-Helaire wasn't looking that great before he got hurt.
It was a timeshare even before the fact. So I actually think there is clarity here. It's a 4 to 6 week injury. That was what it was called initially. We're 3 weeks into that timetable right now. So, early expectation would be next week. If you're asking a question about Gore played like a dozen snaps. I know he scored a touchdown. Yeah, I know he scored a touchdown. I know all of a sudden now everybody knows who he is, and obviously he has a recognizable last name, even though there's no relation there, is there?
No, there's none.
Yeah,
there's
none.
No Frank Gore was actually trending on Monday Night Football.
Awesome. Frank Gore's son.
No, he's still in college. You still got another year and a half to wait for that one.
Chiefs need to sign him. So anyway, there's no value there unless you're if you're in a high stakes league, of course. Sure, why not? Because everybody is rostered in high stakes leagues. But the conspiracy theory came out right away. That first game that Darrell Williams put up the big numbers. Oh, do you think he could pass up Clyde Edwards-Helaire? No, I don't. I don't. There was a committee before the fact, though, and they were splitting targets, essentially. They weren't splitting carries, right? Edwards-Helaire was on the right side of the committee. I think it was about a 70-30 split, roughly. But Edwards-Helaire got basically no goal line work, and it was all Darrell Williams when they got into the goal line, when Edwards-Helaire was still healthy. So that's where I'm a little bit worried over the first 5 weeks of the season, that is. I'm worried there. I think that actually continues. And I think Andy Reid loves himself a 3-down back if he has him. And he does not have a Brian Westbrook. He does not have a Jamal Charles on this team. He's not going to use Edwards-Helaire that way.
No, he definitely doesn't have that. So some of these quick questions before we get to more running backs, because I saw an interesting one here. I'm actually taking Ahmad's question or Ahmed's question and spinning it a little bit. He needs to drop somebody for Brady's bye. It's Beasley, Bateman, Julio Jones, McKissick, and Ridley. That's why I want to bring this up, Jeff. The Ridley situation, the Ridley and Henry situation. Ridley, you can't put in your IR. Henry, you can if you have IRs, which stop not playing with IRs, everybody. Like,
get rid of IRs. I'm on the other side of the fence.
No, you're
why?
not.
And I'll tell you exactly why, Jake. It drives me freaking nuts when people put a guy who's out for a week onto IR. If you have an IR and you have a rule that he should stay on, just like the NFL, if you put him in there, you got to stay on there for 3 games, then I'm okay with it. But if it's that free bingo space. I'm in the PFF Legacy Staff Dynasty League. Some of the guys in that league, and hey, you guys, I'll say it right to your faces as I am right now. They have turned that into an art form using the 1 week IR, and it drives me nuts. I don't like the IR. I get it in a Dynasty League, but still, I don't like when you can just use it as like a little free bingo space each week.
I'm completely opposite. I want 6 IRs, load them up because of the luck factor. Don't force more bad luck on me. Although, what being said, Jeff, is for my home league, you can't even make a move if you have if you put like last week, Barkley's on IR. Right now he's questionable. He's not officially out. If I still have him there, I can't do anything. I'm locked. Yeah. I can't pick up waivers. I can't set my lineup. I can't do anything. So, but anyway, that's the sidebar. Ridley and Henry, if you have either one of them, do you drop him at this point? Obviously, Ridley's is more cloudy, but the whole point I see a lot of people asking about Henry is, what if he comes back for the final 2 weeks of the playoffs and he's just sitting out? So Henry and Ridley, do you get rid of him?
So here's what I do with Henry. I try and trade him. I look at the team who's like 7-1 right now, and I dangle him.
I've seen some of this.
I do not think Henry will be back until, best case scenario, I think, is week 16, based on everything out there. That's an 8 week. 6 week is if it's a very straightforward 5th metatarsal fracture, boom, bang, boom, and he's done. And with a guy like Henry, I just don't see that happening. All the expectations from medical experts out there say it's 8 to 10 weeks. So dangle him out there. Remember, if you're playing right now, I don't care if you're 7-1, you're 3-4, whatever you aren't guaranteed to play in week 16. You aren't. You are not guaranteed to play in the fantasy semifinals. So dangle him out there, try and get something. If you can't get anything, I would drop him. I would, if I don't have that IR spot.
Ridley too?
Ridley is tricky.
Yeah, I know.
And I'll tell you why. And I don't want to downplay this whatsoever. Lane Johnson took some time away from the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, his was for mental health reasons. We don't know if there's any similarity between what Lane went through and what Calvin Ridley is going through. But he took time away, and then he did come back to the team. It was 3 games away. That could be the case for Ridley. I don't know if we're ever going to get an indication of that one way or the other, but I'm willing to hold on to him for right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Ridley one too, just because he didn't say I'm done for the year. He said some time away from football.
Yeah.
So, again, maybe it helps him with the roster situation and knowing what they need to do or whatever. So I'm with you. Unless, we're 2 weeks from now and it's like you lose and you're out of the playoffs and you have to start somebody. I'm not dropping Ridley off my bench to go pick up. I'm just trying to think of some of the waiver moves like this week, like even Elijah Moore. Because Elijah Moore is blocked by Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder's not they just proved that the Jets just showed us Moore is not stepping into the Corey Davis role. Denzel Mims and Keelan Cole did. So I only bring up that name to say that is because you're probably not even starting Elijah Moore anyway. So unless you absolutely need a starter. Now here's 2 starters you've been gifted with if you picked up either one of them. It's Khalil Herbert and Elijah Mitchell. I put them together despite their scenarios being different, Jeff, to say going forward, how much respect do we need to put on the names? Because Elijah Mitchell's situation is, it's Shanahan, 0 use in the passing game, 0. He had 2 targets and 2 catches in back-to-back games. Since then, it's all been Hasty because Hasty's now healthy. Khalil Herbert has looked great. People might have not noticed because they probably didn't watch the Bears game, rightfully so, from that first snap. But Damian Williams started that game. Damian Williams got the first snap. And I'm not saying that told us what was going to happen in the game, but he also has David Montgomery coming back in 2 weeks. So going forward, how do you value both of these guys?
I think Khalil Herbert is the cuff after this week. And there's
one more week left.
So basically. one week of a starter. Yeah. He's the cuff in that backfield. So he'll remain, and that's pretty high value. There's the outside chance. I don't know. That's not a Matt Nagy move that we could see a little bit more of him, but I do think Monty just comes back and he's in that, 20 carry, 3 catch role or whatever, basically what Herbert's doing right now. As far as Elijah Moore, everybody's going to look to Jeff Wilson. We have to change the mindsets, right? We have to realize that we're not in the past. We saw that with Jerry Jeudy. People were freaking losing their minds over Jerry Jeudy, and the dude's playing in the slot now. This is not August. It was late October. Now we're in November. Jerry Jeudy's value has a cap on it that it didn't have on it back then. Jeff Wilson may have looked like he was going to be something way back in May when he got hurt. And I realize he is going to start practicing now. That opens up a 21-day window where he can ultimately get back. But let's be clear. This backfield is Elijah Mitchell's backfield in terms of early down work. He's the West Coast Damian Harris, and he's going to get enough work, and especially in the right matchups where he can take advantage of that awesome system that he is in to be an RB2. I don't think we're going to see him put up, many RB1 weeks, but the world needs RB2s as well. So I have more value in him going forward than I do in Herbert. This week, I still like Herbert a lot, don't get me wrong, but going forward, Mitchell way ahead of him.
Okay. All right. So we have a situation this week that probably don't know until at least Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll have to watch. James Robinson banged up. They call him day to day, but we know Urban Meyer did everything he could not to use James Robinson this year, and he's got his boy Carlos Hyde, which Urban Meyer's like, oh my God, I get an excuse to use Carlos Hyde. So James Robinson, if healthy, against Buffalo. An RB1, maybe, because how healthy is he? And then the easier answer, I think, Jeff, is if there is no James Robinson, how high does Hyde go for you? Because he's probably working in the 85, 90% Devontae Booker workload because Urban Meyer loves Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, I'm looking at rankings. I guess he'd probably slide into the back end of RB2s. Right back there, I do have
Booker or Hyde.
I would have Booker ahead.
Okay.
Back where the Denver guys. I mean, man, this is annoying too because you see the Michael Carter breakout. You should have the Javonte Williams breakout any of these weeks, and then Melvin Gordon. That game last week, they were identical. They were literally identical with one notable exception. Melvin Gordon scored 2 touchdowns. That's it. That's the only difference there. And in fact, I think there's a fair argument to say that Javonte Williams was more effective, but he scored the touchdowns. So it's annoying. Touchdowns are the worst part of fantasy football, by the way. I hate 100%. Touchdowns. That's where I would have him back in the back end. So right around the Chase Edmonds territory for me right now is likely where he'd slide up. I would not be excited about it though, because it's still a low ceiling and you're hoping for touchdowns.
Quick sidebar, Jeff. You always talk about people who see bring back 6-point touchdowns for quarterbacks.
Ugh.
And in one of my favorite leagues, because you just said it, value yardage more than it is. Here's what you do in my league: every touchdown is 4 points, including running backs and wide receivers and tight ends and defenses and everything. All 4 points, all of them. Give value back to yards.
And the rebuttal that people are going to have to that is, but Jake, they're not worth that much in real football. Okay, buddy, how much are yards worth in real football? It's fantasy football. We can score it whatever way we want to score it. Team defense, why in the world do you only get 2 points for a safety? Do you realize there's only a dozen safeties a year? That should be 15 points.
How about block kicks?
Exactly.
Block kicks should be way up there too.
Exactly. You know how hard it is to block a kick? Should be worth way more.
You know what? I saw, I forget who tweeted over the weekend. I love this one too. And I hadn't done it before, and I don't know why. It's one of those things that's just why didn't I ever think of it? Is forcing a 4th and out. Is forcing them to give up on downs.
Yeah. I love that. I love all there's so many elements of team defense that we
Jiggles.
should be scoring.
On yards allow, I do that in my home league. I like the yards allowed too.
3 and outs. Even just get a point for every punt that you face. I mean, you forced a punt, so you should get a point for that. Don't give up, or it should be negative points for touchdowns allowed, not for all points. Because if you're Robbie Blake Bortles and you're throwing pick sixes left and right, your defense shouldn't be penalized for that.
Absolutely. Let's see real quick in these questions. So go to Brandon, because this ties in a few things we're going to talk about. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about it, and then I'll do your Brandon. I'll do your question as a follow-up. I'm going to jump down to wide receivers. I'm going to come back to running back in a second here. But Actually, you know what? I'll just tie the Raiders into it because I was talking about the running backs too. So Jacobs and Drake, if Jacobs plays against the Giants, I'm assuming he's near your top 15 of running backs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If there is no Jacobs, how high does Drake go for you? Because the new coaching change seems to like him a little bit more than they did in the past. And Peyton Barber's probably involved, but maybe not what he used to be.
Well, the previous coach
Robin
is the
Barkley?
reason why. Yeah, previous coach liked him.
So Drake in that Booker range?
Exactly, which is basically where Jacobs is. I can't go much higher than that. I can't put him into RB1s. So, solid play, though, if you have him.
So for the wide receivers then, interesting, the Giants have not been shut down. They've also not been destroyed in the passing game. They've actually played a pretty decent game against the Chiefs, as seen. Especially, they've been really good against tight ends this year. Is like limiting them, not just Travis Kelce. But they're still exploitable. And now you have one less person in the equation. We talked about this last week. I've been talking about it in my waiver shows, and that I'm excited for Bryan Edwards for the ceiling. And this was before anything happened with the news, and I'm just like, don't need to focus on that. It's super unfortunate. I feel terrible for the people involved. But anyway, that being said, I had mentioned that Edwards was second most only to Darren Waller the week before and Foster Moreau the week before the bye in snaps, routes, opportunity, and all that type of stuff. So I was already excited for Edwards. Now it's Edwards and Renfrow. How high are you going with Renfrow and Edwards? And do you have a preference between the two? Because I think the situation is a little bit different now.
It is. And, to point out with the Giants secondary, Bradbury, even though he's given up a lot of catches, he's kept everything in front of him. So
right.
It's one of those like deceptive stats. Like you could make him out to look terrible, but if you just pointed out all the receptions in his coverage, but he's not giving up a lot of yards. So that's the important thing there. Right this week, I'm gonna go slightly safer because Jake, I tend to go safe until I see it. So safer is Hunter Renfrow this week as the better of the two plays. I do think they're both playable. Edwards, as you mentioned, does have the higher ceiling. Now, we'll see if the increased opportunity leads to increased fantasy output. But for right now, I always say I'd rather have a guy go off on my bench than put up a dud in my starting lineup. I have him on plenty of benches already because I was a believer in the talent before all, what you just alluded to. I'm not trying to force him into starting lineups, though. I'm not trying to create narratives to get him in there. So I would prefer Renfrow as a wide receiver 3. If I need a desperation flex, then Edwards is in the mix for me.
Okay. I was just looking over. I was like, you know what? I might have to take the Heineke jersey down. The problem is the jersey behind him is a signed Michael Thomas jersey, so I can't, display that. I just find something. I'm going to have to replace that whole section over there now.
Maybe you could get a Mike Thomas, that other guy out there.
The Cincinnati version? Mike just scribble over top of it.
I'm sure he'd sign it for you.
He probably would. Actually, this right here, that's a Michael Carter signed mini helmet, by the way.
Oh, that's sweet.
Official.
Nice.
And then the reflection, you can't see it, but that's a Jalen Hurts mini signed helmet over there. So I got both those when they were at a little show here locally. So
nice.
Good. Big ups for them. Excited for them. On the other side of the ball, no Kenny Galladay practice today. The question that I saw was because Tony and Bryan Edwards were in the question with Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams is clearly the safe play. Tony and Bryan Edwards would be if you need the boom bust, which is a very common answer we'll have as fantasy analysts. Is like, if you need safe points, you go running back. If you want a home run and you're worried about that you need the upside, but evaluate, as Jeff and I always say, evaluate your own team. Do not look at your opponent. Do not look at the projected score. Do not look at anything. Look at your team and say, in my flex, do I need ceiling or do I need floor? That's how you make your decision. So that being said, if no Galladay, there is no Shepard. He's officially out, at least through their bye. You and I were super high on Tony. Well, not super high. We were higher on Tony last week, and he got banged up in that game. Yeah. I was so frustrated. I saw you and I were both pretty high on him. I was really annoyed about that because we were right. We were right on what could have happened, but he got banged up. Still being not 100% now because this is 2 weeks in a row for Tony. Would you play him as an RB3, or do you think his floor is potentially like at Edwards where it could be like I could get that 0 in my lineup?
I'm going to play him as a wide receiver 3.
Okay.
The simple fact is that Daniel Jones locks into guys. You saw him locking into Shepard before he got dinged up. We've seen him lock into Tony so far this season. And that's the type of receiver apparently he likes. He apparently doesn't like the Kenny Galladay type of receiver. So, yeah, I would use him as a wide receiver 3. Hopefully he is healthy enough. I mean, nobody's going to be healthy in week 9, but healthy enough to get out there. We know the ceiling. So yeah, I'm playing him as a wide receiver 3.
All right. Real quick, Alex, no, I don't need an Odell Beckham jersey because I have an Odell Beckham Giants and an Odell Beckham Browns jersey, even though he blocked me for not understanding the joke about the boat. So I don't need a third Odell Beckham jersey for whatever team if he ever plays for another one. Bradbury covering Waller, if it does happen, which probably does happen at some points throughout the game, not really opens up Foster Moreau for me, more so Hunter Renfrow. Jeff, do you agree with that, or would you think that Moreau might be a desperation play at tight end?
I don't think Bradbury covers Waller. That's the thing. I don't think
he was on Kelsey a bit, but that's why I said a bit. It wasn't the entire game. He didn't shadow him, but he did drop down on Kelsey.
But Kansas City doesn't have Edwards.
True.
Like they have Tyreek Hill, they have a slot receiver. So that's where I kind of lose that one.
Okay. That's why we're talking about it.
And Bradbury he hasn't shadowed as much this year. Bringing in Adoree changes things. A lot of people overlook that. Like we saw it with the Rams last year. When Darius Williams started to play well, Jalen Ramsey didn't need to shadow anymore. Like you don't need to do it because you have another guy who can cover as well. And Adoree has done a nice job for them. Again, like you said, they're a little bit bend but don't break, but that works for this defense. And I don't know if that necessarily means anything here. It's a question about Moreau, though. Is that the thing? Am I reading the right question here?
Yeah, it was a deep play in Foster Moreau. No, I'm not going that far.
No, we got a couple names at tight end that I think you could do better with.
So we're about to come for somebody, but Alan Kane, whatever you say your first name. I apologize that you have to be the sacrificial lamb, but we're coming for you because I know Jeff's going to be on the same page for me. But it's a learning lesson, and I'm saying this look. I understand not everybody's experience. That's why I'm smiling while I'm saying it. Don't hate us, don't hate the show. Take it as a learning lesson. The question is, offer Dawson Knox for Michael Carter. Hell no, 1 billion, 1,000 trillion times. At the beginning of the show, he just said, do not trade running backs. Do not trade running backs of RB2 value for a tight end unless the name is Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews. And even in that case, I probably still don't do it because it depends on your next running back up. Running backs at this point of the season, especially, Jeff, I need to get a haul. I don't care if it looks ridiculous on paper. Like, I can't believe you got all that for your running back. I don't care. Michael Carter is a sell-high candidate because everybody's going ballistic after what just happened, and I love to see it. But you do not trade him for a tight end, let alone a hurt tight end.
I mean, the number one thing, and this is like as old as time, apparently, with fantasy football, that people will ask, should I accept the deal? Don't ask that question. Ask the question, does the deal make my team better? And I know, okay, Michael Carter's on your bench right now. You know what? He shouldn't be this week unless you have like one of the top 11 basically this week. He's breaking out. Trading for a tight end, a onesie position is not going to make your team better, especially when you sacrifice a running back. Jeff, I'm not using him. I don't care. It ain't about your starting lineup. I didn't say does it make your starting lineup better. I said does it make your team better.
Right.
Derrick Henry, last week, you had Derrick Henry. You're on easy street. Life is grand. You're already counting the money, spending it. You got a place picked out on the mantle for the trophy, and now here he's gone. Right? The league
I got one
so quickly.
I can one up you. My buddy in my home league was cruising along, leading the league. Everybody's like, God, this team is not going to be stopped. Derrick Henry, Calvin Ridley, Sterling Shepard was his wide receiver 3. Oh. Ask him how he's feeling about it after last week. Like, it just like that. It can change. It can, on a dime. Rapidly. So DJ Moore versus New England. Look, Phil Mike's very loyal, so I love you, Phil. But I feel like, Phil, you should also know this answer because we've said it a million times. The Patriots aren't the only of the 32 teams that look to stop the best player. Everybody tries to stop the best player. The Patriots are just a very good defense with one of the greatest coaches of all time. They do it better than a lot of people do. But look at what the Giants just did. Completely shut down Travis Kelce. Granted, Tyreek Hill went off because you can't really stop both of them. So I say all this to say this, Jeff. If DJ Moore is that concerning to people, I'm buying low everywhere I possibly can because whether or not Christian McCaffrey plays this week, if he does, your buy window low is going to be closed. It's done after this week. But if Christian McCaffrey's out one more week, it's going to close next week. Get in on DJ Moore before it's too late.
If you're results-based in fantasy football, you're not going to be successful over the long term. I know you look at DJ Moore last week and you say, oh, he isn't getting it done. And you do that thing. I was saying this on air today, so if you listen to the radio show, you already know what I'm going to say. The Angry Bird's eyebrows, and you get really angry and he sucks. But you know what? DJ Moore is third among wide receivers in target. That is a process, not a result, right? The process is follow the volume. And with DJ Moore, the volume is there. And hey, Sammy Darnold, we can say what we want if he is, in fact, through concussion protocol for this game. We can say what we want about him, but at least he does know this team. He has faced them a few times in his career already. So, no, I mean, sure, the floor, it's not the highest, but the ceiling is always high with DJ Moore, and the volume is key. He's going to continue to get these looks, these targets. He's got value.
So speaking of volume, two situations of volume I want to ask you about. What is your opinion after 1 week of the Eagles' backfield? We talked about it last week. So completely off Gainwell because cannot block. Boston Scott and Jordan Howard were the options. I wasn't expecting it to be that much. I wasn't expecting Kenneth Gainwell to be basically a zero factor. And of course, nobody was expecting Jordan Howard to get 2 touchdowns. But now going into the next week, is this Scott Howard Gainwell, Scott Gainwell Howard, what are you making of this, Jeff, going forward?
If we're shocked that a passing down back did not perform well in a game where his team literally kicked the crap out of the opposing team, then we don't know football, right? Passing down backs are volatile. Kenny Gainwell's a passing down back. They're not going to, I don't think, kick the crap out of the Chargers. So he should be back to his regular role. Jordan Howard immediately reverted to the practice squad on Monday. I have not seen him called up yet. He was called up early in the week last week, so we got to pay close attention to that. If he's not called up, he won't be used, and that could very well happen. We'll see. Boston Scott, though, at least given what he has shown, given the red zone work, I think you could use him as a back-end RB2 against a very poor run defense. I just am not willing to completely throw the towel in on Kenny Gainwell. Again, that's results-based as opposed to process-based, which means know the actual role in the offense and the fact that role has some volatility based on game script.
Okay. All right. So then another situation we talk about, I don't disagree with you at all on that one. The volume hasn't been there for Mike Williams. Just a few weeks ago, Mike Williams, how quickly things can change. Mike Williams, top 5 wide receiver in all of fantasy. Buy him everywhere. The breakouts finally come. I think part of it is he's not 100%. If you watch that game, he didn't look like, he looked like just a tick off of what Mike Williams is. And I joked about it early in the week. I said Mike Williams just knows how to get hurt. That's his job. But let's be honest, like Mike Williams and Justin Herbert after last week, because Justin Herbert did find 2 touchdowns, looked great with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, but he did throw 2 picks. This is now 2 games in a row where Herbert's looked a little off, and 2 games in, well, actually a couple weeks now where Mike Williams has been off. What are your feelings on that duo right now?
I think people need patience in fantasy football. That's like the number one rookie mistake. And I think it's what separates folks like me and you, Jake, or people who play at the high level and win a lot from a lot of the other players out there is we're willing to take the long view at things. We're willing to look at the forest. You have to look at the trees, of course, but we're willing to look at the forest. I had somebody say, Justin Herbert is killing my team. And I said, what did Justin Herbert do just 2 games ago? He had arguably the best fantasy performance of any quarterback out there this season. We're only a few games removed from that. So, it's an ebb and flow. And last year, rookie season was amazing. One defense completely confounded him. It was the Patriots. Go figure. Bill Belichick knows how to defend him. And like I said, it wasn't all terrible. It's not like he went out and had 90 yards passing, 3 picks, 2 fumbles. It was okay. It wasn't what you were, it wasn't elite, but it was okay. As far as Mike Williams is concerned, he's best viewed probably as a wide receiver 2 type, which means there is volatility. There is a high ceiling with him, but there's also a somewhat lower floor. Some of these guys will come with a roller coaster. Like our guy, I was talking about this on air, Jake, our guy, Brandon Cooks. It's like people are just learning that Brandon Cooks is a roller coaster ride. Like this has been the dude's MO his entire career.
You know what I said? It was either yesterday. I said it to either Lauren or Monday with Meany. I said this, Jeff, and I know you'll echo the sentiment. I said, if it wasn't a roller coaster, he'd be a wide receiver 1. Only wide receiver 1s don't go from 15 points to 5 to 15 to 5 to 20 to 7. Like, that's why he's a wide receiver 3. But be happy he's a wide receiver 3. Yeah.
And he put up a good line against the Rams. What else do you want from the freaking guy? As far as Mike Williams, though, one thing to note, the Phillies secondary, credit where credit's due, these guys can play, and they've really... they kind of struck gold with Steven Nelson, getting him in there from Pittsburgh. And Avonte Maddox having a very good season. And, of course, everybody knows Darius Slay. Darius Slay could be on Williams in this one. It would not surprise me if they decided to go that route. They don't necessarily have to, but if they did want to kind of try and take him out of the game, they did it to DJ Moore, and it worked pretty well there. So I could see that happen.
I was going to say that. Do you know how many double-digit scores have gone against the Eagles this year?
I can't imagine very many.
Throw out a guess. I think you're on pay. You might guess it if you said not very many.
2?
4.
4.
2 barely. 10.1 to Debo on 8 targets. 10.3 to Bryan Edwards, who scored a touchdown. And then 15 to Antonio Brown.
Yep.
And 37 to Tyreek Hill.
Of course.
With that 3-touchdown game. But no. The funny thing is you take out that Tyreek Hill game, which you never take anything away, but you take that out and good God, zeros in single-digit performances, 5 points or fewer. I'm glad you brought that up. I do like Mike Williams a little bit more, but not much more than what people would have think just because honestly, this week he's a touchdown or bust.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Real quick, so I saw that, trade Michael Carter for DJ Moore in a vacuum. Absolutely. Here's the issue. Again, talked about it before. If Michael Carter's your RB3 and the next man up is like an RB4 or 5, no, as much as I would love to do that trade. Absolutely 100%. If you have the running back to depth to do it and Michael Carter is your RB4 or you have a very similar RB3, absolutely. That's why vacuum and contacts come into play. I saw this one. Trade Hurts and Godwin for Herbert and Williams because we're talking about Herbert and Williams in a 2-quarterback league. Jeff and I have been sitting here saying, you're not worried about Hurts. Jeff jokingly said, if you're in the championship game, you're predicting you're already in the championship game if you're worried about him getting benched at that point. But all jokes aside, Jeff, if you got Hurts and Godwin for Herbert and Williams, would you get away just for the risk?
Getting Herbert, is that
and
what
Williams? Yeah, getting Herbert
Williams.
and Williams for Hurts and
Who
Godwin.
am I starting at tight end?
What do you mean
Am I
at tight end?
You said Goddard, right?
Godwin.
Godwin. Oh, I thought you said Goddard. I'm sorry.
No, Hurts and Godwin for Herbert and Williams.
I think I'd stay put because that feels lateral, and I don't think it makes my team better.
And that's what I should say. If it's a wash, lateral move, I don't do it because it doesn't improve. But if you want to, I'm not going to be like, whatever. You can go ahead with that.
Yeah, I mean, some people like to trade for the sake of trading. I really don't see a point in it. I'm only going to make a trade if a trade is necessary to be made, if it really makes my squad better. Otherwise, I typically find that, I'm making my team better through waivers. And really, it's running back. That's why I hammered wide receiver in drafts this year. Because every year, I talked about, Jake, here's a name for you. I talked about this name on the show today. Nick Goings. If you want to see something very interesting, look at the second half of Nick Goings' season in 2004, and you see a monster performance from a dude who basically never was seen or heard from again or before. These guys appear every single year at this time of year. So, yeah, I'd rather work waivers there. And I don't feel a need to shuffle Godwin for Williams. Godwin, get the bye week out of the way. He's still going to be heavily involved. Now, let's be clear. He was really heavily involved because Marshawn Lattimore predictably was shadowing Mike Evans last week. And Antonio Brown was not on the field, right? But still, I'm going to keep with him there, and Brady's going to throw 56 touchdown passes this year, and we'll call it a day.
Who was the Peyton Hillis? I was trying to think. Yeah, he was the entire season.
Or CIA guy.
I was just trying to think of like the never seen from again.
Yeah, well, we'll always see him on the cover of that Madden, though.
I don't know. Does anybody really still have that Madden? What year was that? 2005?
I don't know. I don't buy Madden or play Madden, so that was probably the last.
Why do you hate Madden?
Yeah, I ranked it low. I don't have a video game system that can play this fancy new stuff, man. I maxed
2010, so he was on the that had to be covered 2011 then, right?
I don't even know. Would they have that for GameCube? That's about as maxed out as I have.
GameCube,
GameCube's pretty badass. Don't get me wrong.
It was at the time. 2 quarterback situations and their effect on the wide receiver. Justin Fields finally had his breakout, which, by the way, included running. What a concept, Justin.
Last 3 weeks.
Finally taking off. But the big thing is Mooney is clearly his number 1. Do you trust Mooney as a wide receiver 3, or is he not there yet?
Well, trust is a strong word.
I know. That's why I used it. I used trust specifically.
I haven't been at 36, so I guess. I mean, he's at
so
the very
no,
back end.
but he's there. Like I would say 36 is not trust. I would say that's like I feel okay about him.
I hope he connects on a couple of these deep balls, and that's really where it is. Now, at the same time, I keep getting asked, what's the reason to keep Allen Robinson? Well, what's the reason to drop him? Because you're angry, right? That's the reason you want to drop him. But if there is somebody better out there, if you were able to pick up one of these running backs and move on from Allen Robinson, I get it. I'm not going to talk you out of it, but there are a couple reasons to pick him keep him. He has a proven track record, right? This is not some fly by the night guy who is just showing up out of nowhere. We know who Allen Robinson is. He's not quite over the hill. And this dude didn't even play basically with Justin Fields until 6 weeks ago. Justin Fields had no first team reps in the preseason. It was all Andy Dalton. So now they're playing together, and Fields finally looks comfortable. He's not throwing a lot yet, but as he runs, I mean, that's part of it, Jake. You played sports, you know as well as I do. Sometimes you get out there, you're a little nervousy, and you just need one thing to settle you down. I think that running is that one thing for Justin Fields, and I'm hoping we start to see now the uptick with the arm as well.
Yeah. So on another one, Jimmy Garoppolo still being the quarterback and playing decently. Ayuk showed a glimmer. Showed a little bit there, little bit, but we still have the Shanahan. He's not quite there yet. Thanks, Sherry. You've been saying this all year long. If Ayuk got dropped, would you go stash him similar to Allen Robinson just to be like, hey, it might happen in another week or two? Or is the Kittle return going to ruin this for you?
No, I think it might open it up even. Okay. Because now you have to account for him. You don't have to account for Ross Dwelly. So, yeah, I actually would stash him. It's all about those types of players. I'd rather stash him than some of these, like Jarvis Landry. Like, we know what Jarvis Landry is. Good football player, but he's not a league-winning type player. He doesn't have a high
full
ceiling.
PPR fringe wide receiver 3, Cole Beasley.
Yeah.
Similar range.
By the way, Cole Beasley last week, shadow coverage for Stephon Diggs from Xavier Howard, shadow coverage for Emmanuel Sanders from Byron Jones. Gee, I wonder what matchup. Are you going to attack those guys or Nick freaking Needham? You're going to go after Nick Needham. Obviously, that's what Josh Allen did. So don't read too much into last week.
All right, before we get out of here, streamers for the week. I will answer the streaming defense of the week. Las Vegas Raiders against Daniel Jones. Top 5 pass rush, top 5 most exploitable, whatever word you want to use for offensive line, letting the pass rush get to the quarterback, and Daniel Jones. So I love that one. But quarterback, I'm just going to, this is easy. Lay up, Jeff. Taysom Hill. Yeah. Taysom Hill is just like two touchdowns in all of his games. Granted, he looked miserable throwing the ball against the Broncos, but still ran for 2. He's almost guaranteed for 2 touchdowns, at least 1 and 1 running. So Taysom Hill was an easy one. So I'll let you mention your quarterback.
And you'll have him for the rest of the season, very likely as well, even in one quarterback leagues, obviously. Carson Wentz trending up, 11 passing touchdowns over the last 5 games. He looks like he's got a nice connection with Michael Pittman. T.Y. Hilton has already declared out, right? So yep. Michael Pittman's going to see like 100 targets. It's all good there.
And then I'll let you try to say his last name at tight end.
I'm not.
No, you have to try. You can't do it. You can't say his name. Like you can't just cheat and say, "Oh, I'm taking
Boonham."
Is it? I don't know. That's close.
Boonham? I don't know. I'm
no
close.
offense on COVID, so you're going for the replacement of Abawaba Hubandon?
Yeah, Alberto, a very athletic tight end, and he ran the fastest combine 40 time of the tight ends in last year's combine. So he's got that juice there. And yeah, I think that he's an interesting play this week. And I'd rather have him than some like the Tyler Conklins of the world.
Yeah. And my choice is to go back to the air fryer and air fryer Muth all day long. Love him. As long as Eric Ebron is out, it's terrific. Even if Ebron's back, still like him. So he's Jeff at Jeff Ratcliffe. Make sure you follow him and the work at FTN. Code ALLIN, 20% off. And theathletic.com/BetsTV. All capitals, first free month. Back next week, week 10. We're already going to be into the double digits. Love you guys.